What's up? It's Tom bringing you a mega Twins system recap this time, covering all of last week. And we are rolling into the All-Star break. I do want to call out that the full season minor league teams, all these logos you see here, are also off until Friday this week. So they have a little All-Star break as well. The DSL Twins and the FCL Twins will be playing. So if you're extra hungry for minor league action, you can dig through those box scores. But these teams will be off. So we'll talk about their last week heading into the break. Just a quick look at records. We're not going to go over all the results of the week, but here are the records. The Twins, 48-49 at the break, only 3 back in the division, and actually tied for a wild card spot. I've mentioned this before. I think we're going to talk a lot more about the big club than usual on this channel. With that being the case, going to talk about, these games are huge coming up after the break. Going to talk about the games more. Going to talk about some potential trade deadline routes. Not sure what that's going to look like in conjunction with the system recaps, but we'll figure it out as we go. Anyway, the Saints and Muscles still hanging in there with winning records, but very tough year for the Wind Surge and not a great year for the Colonels either. News and notes, there's a lot of stuff going on, and this doesn't cover everything, but this is kind of the most noteworthy stuff. Well, just give me 1 sec on the Ryan Sprock. I want to circle back to that one. Obviously, a front and center guy in the system recaps, but very excited to see Riley Quick promoted to Wichita, going up to Double-A, but he didn't debut yet. He'll debut after the break. This feels like more of a predetermined path for him than anything. And also just a big, he was just drafted last year. So this is a big nod to him by the organization by saying, hey, this is what we think of you. Go out there and do your thing in Double-A. Despite being a pretty inexperienced guy. You can read through the rest of these transactions, but circling back a bit to that Ryan Sprock trade, Tommy Nance, I think there's an argument that maybe he's the best bullpen arm the Twins have right now, and that says a lot about the Twins bullpen. At some point they're going to need to aim higher because they have Tommy Nance again. He has more of a track record of success than like Yoendrys Gomez or Andrew Morris, but that doesn't say much either. So they keep grabbing these guys, and it's good to have a lot of chips, and you hope that people emerge like Yoendrys Gomez has, but. You see toward the bottom here, Cole Sands is nearing a return. Garrett Acton is on a rehab assignment. Julian Merriweather, who's had some success in the big leagues, is on rehab assignment. They brought Matt Bowman back. That's in addition to all of the vets they already have in St. Paul and the other guys. So they already have a lot of chips out there. So, they do need to set the sights higher at some point in the bullpen than this. But Ryan Sprock, guy I really enjoyed. One of my favorite guys to watch in the system this year. One of my favorite stories, too, with him trying to pick up catching and doing a really admirable job. But I'm fine with this trade. If we were to imagine, again, Ryan Sprock was the 8th round pick last year. If you tell me a year from now, Thomas Burns, I think the guy out of Texas they drafted, if they flip him for a big league piece, I'll be fine with that. I think we're a little attached to Ryan Sprock because he's been playing well. But a guy he reminds me of, Sprock is the better hitter, but Cardenas is the better catcher. But if you're trying to find a comp of a guy who put together somewhat similar numbers to Sprock, it's always tricky to do that, but Cardenas is the guy who came up with both former 8th round picks. Cardenas a natural catcher while Sprock is trying to pick up catching. But in a pretty similar sample, Sprock has him beat offensively, but they're similar hitters, high OBP, low strikeout, high walk guys. And again, Cardenas more of a catcher than Sprock. Sprock a better hitter. Not trying to say that these are completely similar. Sprock also, I believe, a little bit younger than Cardenas at the level, so take that into account as well. I know Cardenas, a guy that is in AAA, and he might make it up to the big leagues as a cup of coffee catcher guy coming in as depth. But he's also, if we imagine they traded Noah Cardenas when he was in Fort Myers, not a guy they'd really miss. There's There's the easy guy you could find replacements for one way or another. So, as much as I've enjoyed Ryan Sprock, I'm fine with this trade. Not saying there's no chance that they're going to look back and regret this, but kudos to the scouting department for identifying Sprock as a really interesting guy still around in the 8th round, and also having this idea and looking at him and saying, I bet you we could have him catch. That's like just a crazy thing. I'm not sure how many other teams out there would have even tried that, let alone helped him be as successful as he has. So the fact that Toronto wanted him tells you that, other teams have taken notice and value that guy. So anyway, moving on to the actual action, 3 stars of Tuesday. We're going to do a little bit less talk about each one of these guys. But 3rd star, Caden Kendall, who recently got called up to Double-A. We'll talk more about him later. 2nd star, John Klein had a nice outing for the Saints. Another guy you could throw into that bullpen discussion for the Twins is a Chip. Unproven, though. And then 1st star, Marek Houston had a huge week this week. On Tuesday, 3 for 5 with a triple and a home run. Houston has an 844 OPS in his first 17 games with Wichita, and is also 11 for 11 in stolen base attempts in 17 games, and has 35 steals in the season. So pretty fun to take a look. We're talking about the draft still. Check out those videos on my channel if you want to know more about the draft. And it's fun to see Marek Houston, 1st round pick from last year, really hitting his stride in Double-A at the same time. So it's kind of fun to dream on, where is Von Lackey maybe going to be a year from now. Moving on to the honorable mentions, Preston Johnson and Billy Amick of Wichita, Xavier Kohlhasser, Jacob McCombs, and Henry Kuziak of Cedar Rapids from Tuesday. Moving on to Wednesday. And again, we're tackling 6 whole days of action here. So Garrett Spain, the 3rd star, Ivran Romero overshadowed Riley Quick on his final game. He finished out the final 5 innings, pitched really well. And then Jason Bass, the 1st star of Wednesday, hitting 2 home runs, guy supplying a lot of power to the Mighty Muscles. Wednesday's honorable mention, again, Marek Houston's going to be all over this video. He's having a great run. But Riley Quick, 4 innings of 1-hit ball, 1 run, 4 walks, but 5 strikeouts, closes out his time in Cedar Rapids with a 4.13 ERA and a 1.31 whip with a 13 walk percentage. None of those numbers really jump off the page, but a 34 K percentage. Struck out a third of the batters he faced during his time in Cedar Rapids. Only pitched into the 5th inning twice. Did not complete the 5th inning during his time with the Colonels, but after throwing only 62 innings in college last year, Quick is already up to 49 in the 3rd inning. So, a guy the Twins aren't going to really just let loose in terms of throwing a lot of innings, but again, tells a lot about him, and it's a good kind of a good motivator that they're sending him to Double-A. I'm excited to see what he does, and again, we'll definitely keep an eye out for him after the break to see his first outing in Wichita goes. Moving on to the 3 stars of Thursday. 3rd star, Henry Mendez. 2nd star, Jay Thomason, but the 1st star, Ben Ross. Double and a home run and a 2-hit game for him. A bit of a lighter day on Thursday, and not as many big performances. But on Ben Ross, we're now 65 games into the Ben Ross and AAA experience, and the guy isn't really slowing down that much. I'd completely written him off, to be honest. And now, considering he can play shortstop, he can play center field as he did on Thursday, he might be a big leaguer. The International League average OPS is 765, and Ben Ross has an 846 OPS in these 65 games with the Saints. So, huge tip of the cap to him for really reviving himself as a hitter and his career turning around. Here are the honorable mentions from Thursday: Jenkins, DeBarge, Houston again, Kendall again, and then Jesse Bergen. Fort Myers was postponed on Thursday. Switching gears to Friday, 3rd star was Jose Salas, who's back down with the Colonels, unfortunately for him. Caden Kendall, yet again, on the star scoreboard with a 2nd star. And then Danny De Andrade with a couple extra base hits and a nice game for the Colonels. Getting a bit of a lighter day on Friday. Kendall, going back to Kendall, the 2nd star, like Ross, another former 5th round pick and another guy I'd kind of written off mostly. He's had a really good first handful of games with Wichita. Honorable mentions for Friday: Henry Mendez popping up again, Gabriel Gonzalez, Mitch Mueller, Jacob McCombs, Yasser Mercedes, and then Fort Myers was postponed yet again on Friday. 3 stars of Saturday, Danny De Andrade popping up with another one. Preston Johnson continues to pitch well for Wichita. And Justin Mitrovic, another guy from last year's draft class. In their second game, 4 2/3 innings of one-hit ball, no runs, 2 walks, 7 strikeouts over 4 2/3 innings for him. 9th-round pick from last year's draft. He got 8 whiffs on his changeup alone in this game. That is a good pitch for him. Kind of a funky delivery, funky release guy with that changeup. 2.74 ERA and a 30 K percentage in 42 2/3 innings for Fort Myers. We'll see how things go for him going up the line. Topped out at 94 in this one, but probably is going to need to round out some things before he can be successful, especially in the high minors. But definitely looks like an intriguing pick from the 9th round of last year's draft. Saturday, honorable mentions, Adrian Bajorquez, Eduardo Tait, Enrique Jimenez, Reed Mooring, Ramiro Dominguez. Kind of funny on the day that the Twins draft 2 catchers, both of the guys who catch for Cedar Rapids have good games. Embarrassment of riches all of a sudden back there, even with Sprock out of the picture. So moving on to Sunday, we're about to wrap things up here. Luis Fragoza, the 3rd star, played third base in that one. Merritt Jones had a really nice 5-inning start for Fort Myers. But then Marek Houston, again, with a big game for the Wind Surge, 3 for 4 with a double, a homer, a walk. But back to Fragoza, he doesn't have enough plate appearances to qualify for like the rate stat leaders in the Florida State League. But if we lower the threshold to 140 plate appearances to get him into the mix there, he would lead the league in slugging by almost 50 points. He's slugging .650, Luis Fragoza, a teenager in the Florida State League. Now, on the flip side, among that sample of 105 batters, he has the 3rd worst walk rate. He's walking in less than 5% of his plate appearances. So, very aggressive hitter, but, I mean, when he's doing that much damage, you can't complain too bad. He's tied for 9th in the Florida State League with 10 homers, despite that kind of limited action. And the Muscles only had 1 guy reach 10 homers all of last year. It was Yasser Mercedes. Both Fragoza and Jason Bass have reached that mark. I think that's the only 2, but there could be somebody I'm forgetting. Sunday's honorable mentions, Ben Ross, again, Aaron Sabato, Kyler Fedko, who's back with the Saints, Rudy Gomez, and Jaime Ferrer for Wichita. So as you could probably guess by how many times Marek Houston came up in this video, he has skyrocketed not only into first, but with a giant lead over Kalen Culpepper, Alan Roden, Ben Ross, who also picked up a bunch of points, Billy Amick in there. Going to keep Ryan Sprock on the board. R.I.P. I put in there. Ryan Sprock as a silly little nod to him, but we'll keep him in the mix. Again, a guy who was having undeniably a really good season. But that kind of, you have to take the context of that out of the trade to a degree. Yasser Mercedes, Andrew Cassetti, Quentin Young, and then Hendry Mendez and Aaron Sabato also tied with those guys, rounding out the top 10. Just taking a look at July. Again, it's July 13th now. These teams are going to be off for a few days, so this is a pretty good chunk of July is already accounted for. And Marek Houston has a nice lead also in July, as you probably could have guessed. Caden Kendall, his new teammate, a really good surge for him in his first outings as a Wind Surge. Do want to call it something I forgot to mention. Marek Houston played second on Sunday, and it was because they wanted to get Brandon Winokur, keep him in the rotation at shortstop. So it might be, obviously they're going to prioritize Houston there, but might be something you see moving forward. Andrew Cassetti continues to play well. Quite a few guys on Wichita in this mix. They're showing some more, not winning as much, but some more, the roster's rounded out, I think, a little bit better than it has been. And that's, Cody Morissette, Ivan Romero, and Ben Ross rounding out that July scoreboard. So, again, if you're looking for draft content, check that out. I've got 2 videos up on here. Many pieces of content, multiple videos, a 40-minute podcast, lots more coming on Limestone Pipeline at Patreon, so check that out as well, from the great Jamie Cameron and myself. But thanks for checking this one out. I appreciate you. We'll talk again soon.